Welcome to Coffee and Pizza. I hope you can enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Pizza. And from today, we have some very special guests from United States. They're Kyser Clark. My pleasure to keep you here. How was going on, my friend?
It's been great. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate you inviting me and getting a chance to share my experience with the audience.
You know, many people can see on your profile like penetration tester, but can you give me some highlights about your life before to start the conversation?
Yeah, so I'm a full-time cybersecurity professional, so more specifically a penetration tester, also known as an ethical hacker. I think the probably the top highlight I have is probably 14 certifications. That's really helped me get my foot in the door in this industry. Is just getting a bunch of certifications. I also have a bachelor's in cybersecurity management and policy. Before I got into cybersecurity, I was working as a full-time industrial sandblaster, painter, and fireproofer. And I decided that was not the life I wanted to live. So I wanted to get into some kind of tech role. Wasn't really sure what it was at first, but I ended up joining the military to go into an IT role as an assistant administrator role. And then once I was in that role, I realized that I really wanted to make it into cybersecurity. And that was really the path that I took, was the military route, because I didn't know how else to break in the field, and I didn't like high school growing up, and I thought I would struggle in college, and I wanted to avoid college like the plague, and I am getting my college degree anyways because the military paid for it. I was like, oh, might as well get it. But that was the reason why I joined the military, and yeah, I learned a lot in the military, and I got paid to learn how to work on this giant network. You know what I mean? The
Okay,
United
okay,
States.
okay. Guys, no, wait. Because you give me a lot of information at the moment. The way I go in step by step, because if someone is hearing us like step by step. From where are you from?
I am from Northeast Ohio.
Well, that's a beautiful place, right? You have a nice view, nature there, right?
Yeah, it's nice. It's got all four seasons, which is really nice, and you get all the seasons, and there's a lot of nature here, and depending on what part of Ohio you're in, like for me in Northeast Ohio, it's really hilly, so there's a lot of nice wilderness to be seen for sure.
But you was born there, or you are there only because the life is beating you there? Then
I
you
was
was
born I was born in Northeast Ohio, lived there for 24 years, and then after I got out of the military, I came back here, so that's where I am now.
that's really nice, man. Then can you explain me a little bit about your life at the beginning when you was younger there? Because I'm very curious about Ohio. You know, I never been there. I always go into the school there. You have high school. You have your football team or something like that.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I really only think there was only two things I really did, was I played video games and I played sports, and that's all I care about for my entire childhood, from when I started playing football in, I don't know, was 9 years old, and all the way up to my senior year of high school when I was 17 years old. And that's really all I did. I just played a lot of video games, and I spent a lot of time on the internet, like on video game forums, and trying to get as much knowledge as I could about how to get better at whatever game I was playing at the time. And and then I also played a lot of sports, and I didn't really spend a lot of, when I was at practice, I would dedicate the time to get better at practice, but I didn't really spend time on sports outside of practice, because after I practice, you're just exhausted. I was like, man, I'm just gonna sit down and play video games. So that was basically my entire childhood in a nutshell.
Mhm. That's very interesting because this is something very common inside of cybersecurity. Most of them like to play video games because I believe video games always give you the opportunity to play again, and you can handle this frustration when you are doing hacking or something like that because you don't win at the first attempt. And I don't know what is your favorite video game. What is your favorite video game?
I'm so glad you asked. Mortal Kombat, actually, I got my Scorpion statue in the back there. So yeah, Mortal Kombat is my favorite video game series of all time.
I mean, like you don't win all the time, right? You have times like you lose the fights in Mortal Kombat.
R- Right. Yeah, you definitely lose a lot. And especially I played competitively for a while, for a minute, for I don't know, a few years. And yeah, there's always someone better than you. And you always get beat up and you're like, wow, I'm maybe not as good as I thought I was. So yeah, you definitely lose I think for me, depending on what kind of game it is, like I would say like 60% of the time I'm winning, and then 40% of the time I'm losing. So there is a lot of losses.
This 40% make you humble, right? It's like, okay, I don't lose all the time. And I believe that's important also because it's a lesson of life. And it's a lesson also for when you play cybersecurity, right? Because later we're going to talk about your certifications because you have a lot. And I believe some of those you don't get it, or maybe I'm wrong in the first attempt, right? Or you need to fight or play harder if you want to push yourself more, knowing about your background. And that's come from the for the next question is how was your school there? Like you was a good student or you was average?
It's kind of a trick question because school to me wasn't difficult. Like if I applied myself, it was easy. But the thing was, I didn't apply myself because it just bored me, right? So my grades was all over the place. There was a point in time where I had average grades, and then I just started focusing more on video games, and in my grades, I got my first F on my report card, and my parents grounded me for a month because I just didn't work on school. And I was like, well, this is never going to happen again because I love playing video games, and if I get bad grades, I can't play video games anymore. So then I turned my F report card into straight A's almost. I think I had almost all A's and one B. And then as I was on a roll for several years, and then when I went into high school, I was like, "Well, I'm not getting rewarded at all for hitting the honor roll," and I just did the bare minimum in school to be on the football team and the basketball team because sports was important to me as well as video games were, and if you had bad grades, then the school wouldn't let you play on the team, so I was only motivated to get average grades just because I wanted to play sports, and I didn't spend a lot of time working. I never did homework, and I slept in class, and I just did the bare minimum to get by in
Mhm.
school, high school.
But that means like sometimes I feel like the problem is not the student, the problem is the system, right? Because for some people can be very boring, and I believe that's your case, right? Because when you have a different point of view or a different approach to the life, try to follow this typical pattern or the typical line for study can be hard for so many people. And you said, do you like to play basketball?
I do. I don't play now because I have a bad knee, but yeah, I played football and basketball for 10 seasons, and I used to play basketball even after school because basketball's a fun sport to play. But I don't play it now because I hurt my knee too many times playing football, and it's at the point where I really have to be careful with my knee now.
Do you know one a street basketball player? The name is the Professor.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, and I think I've seen some video clips of him. Not a lot, but I have a little bit. Yeah.
You look like him a little bit when he was younger. I was thinking maybe it's your brother or something like that. No,
No,
because
no, no relation.
that guy is sick. He played very, very, very good basketball. It's like if someone want to check it, like he tried to find in YouTube. It's like the Professor. Now he's like I don't remember. It's not like younger, but when he was younger, it's incredible how this guy play. The problem is he's not very tall. That's why he doesn't play in NBA. But whatever. After your school, you go to high school, right? And after that, what do you did?
So after high school, I so when I was in high school, I had a job. My first job was washing dishes in a restaurant, and I got that job when I was 16 years old when I was in the 10th grade. And so that was another reason why I didn't do very good in school because I would go to school, get off practice, go do a job for 5 hours, and then come home and play video games till 2 in the morning. So I had a packed schedule, and I think that's where a lot of my work ethic came from, was because it would be a full day of school, then a full practice, and then a shift of work, and then play video games after all that. But so that was my first job outside of high school. That was the same job I had when I was in high school, and I did that job for 3 years in total. And one of those years was when I was out of high school. And eventually I was like, man, I need to do something else in my life. I need to make more money because I can't really support myself the way I want to, making minimum wage washing dishes at a restaurant. So I seeked out to go find some other jobs, ended up getting a job um, at an oil refinery, painting, sandblasting. and fireproofing. And I'm getting out of job because my uncle is a supervisor there, and they were hiring at the time, and they brought me in and gave me a shot, and ended up doing really good at that job, even though there was like no passion about that. So I did that one. I did that job for almost 5 years, like 4 years and 9 months. But yeah, I removed asbestos, and it was a very dangerous job, very hazardous to my health, and very dangerous. And that's what I did for um, almost 5 years out of high school.
Mm. But you need to wear special clothes, right, when you do this? Because it's
Yeah, yeah. When you remove asbestos, because asbestos is extremely hazardous to your health, it's what causes mesothelioma, which is a type of lung cancer, and you have to wear a respirator on your face, and you have to wear a special suit so it doesn't get on your clothes. And it's yeah, it's extremely difficult because I'm outside working, so I have to wear all this gear in 100-degree heat, so it's very labor intensive, and it's hot because you get this mask strapped on your face all day. There was times where you would get off work and you would just see like um a mark all on my face from the wearing my mask so tight because I didn't want it to lose the seal because it's extremely hazardous. I had to make sure it was tight on me, and it was exhausting for sure.
yeah, because North Carolina is not Florida, but it's at summer need to be hot, right? When you are working, not need to be like a dream job for many people.
Yeah, I don't know if it probably isn't a dream job for most people. I mean, a lot of people like it, I guess. There's still people, my uncle still does it. So, but yeah, it wasn't for me. That I wanted to get out of that as soon as I could.
Yeah, because also blasting can be a painting, right? Can be an arty job. you know, you can feel like
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, when I was an industrial sandblaster and painter, which it's not like artistic. It's just, like in an oil refiner, what I'm painting tanks that hold fuel, and they would drain these tanks, and then we would go inside of them or on the outside too. We would paint the outsides of them as well. And the whole purpose of the paint is to, give a good seal on the tank so the fluids don't get contaminated and doesn't leak out of the tank. And it's these tanks are huge. You can literally walk inside of them, and it's like almost like an arena inside these tanks. They hold so much fuel, and it was you're just painting a lot of area. You're just covering a lot of stuff, and yeah, definitely not artistic painting for sure. I don't have any. I don't have any drawing abilities, or like I'm not Picasso or Michelangelo or anything like that.
I was trying to see the good part, right? So because I was thinking, okay, at least you can see like, okay, we can think I am artist or something like that. Okay, and from there, where did you move? Where you start working in the next job? Was working there, yeah, now in the army or?
Yeah, so like I said, I did that for almost 5 years. Decided I needed to switch things up. So I decided to join the United States Air Force, active duty. And once I did that, that was my next job. And I went to basic training, and then had this whole military career after that. And I served 6 years in the United States Air Force, active duty, and that's as a system administrator. They renamed it. So they renamed it from client systems technician to cyber defense operations. So it was like IT work with a lot of security stuff baked in. Actually, that's where I got my first certification to, which was the CompTIA Security Plus, and that's what got me hooked into cybersecurity. Because I went in thinking I was like, oh, I'm just gonna work on computers and do like help desk stuff, and I was okay with that. I'm like, this is way better than what I was doing, right? If I can just work on computers for the rest of my life, like I have it made. And once I got that security plus, started studying for it, I got addicted to cybersecurity, and that's what got me into cybersecurity.
But Security Plus, I believe, is mandatory, right? If you want to work in this position. I
Yep.
don't know if it's still being, but before it was, right?
I think it still is. I mean, I've only been out for half a year, so they could change, but I don't think it did, and I don't think it will change anytime soon. So yeah, for my position, it was mandatory, and for any technician that works on the network in the Department of Defense, they have to have a Security Plus or an equivalent certification.
That's what I did because in my case, I am from Spain, but sometimes I get offers from international companies, and sometimes it's United States companies. And I know for United States companies, if you want to work in something about cybersecurity, at least you need a security plus. If you want to go for the government or something like that, it's totally mandatory. But I remember last year the government changed the law, and I believe it's not mandatory you have the career or degree if you want to work as a cybersecurity. But I know not if it's still being mandatory to have the CompTIA Security Plus. Maybe after that, why you take the decision to okay? I want to go deeply about why you take the decision to start to work in the army.
So I joined the military because I had no passion in my work, right? Like I said, I was working in this extremely hazardous environment around these hazardous chemicals and materials, and it was just extremely hazardous to my health. Not only that, but the work was dangerous and just not there was no passion there, right? Like when I got off work, I didn't really think about anything else. I dreaded going to work every day. Like I'm like I woke up every day and I hated the commute to work every day, and I hated clocking into the oil refinery and smelling the smells of the oil refinery. It doesn't smell good either, and it's just extremely dirty. And like I'm like, this is not for me. And I'm actually gonna. I didn't really say this, but when I was doing this job, I did a lot of Twitch streaming because remember I said I really love playing video games. So I streamed on Twitch for a while, and I would play video games on Twitch. And for people that don't know, that's for uh, people watch you play video games basically. And I did that, and I built up a very large channel. Well, I won't say very large, but I would say a medium-sized channel. Had moderate success. Almost 10,000 followers is what I got the channel up to. And my original goal was to just work on that on the side and fund it through my job. So that was the only thing that like kept me going to that job every day because like I need to pay my bills, and I need to be able to afford my video game hobby. And in my free time, every little bit of my free time was to that Twitch stream because I was trying to build up a channel, trying to build up an audience, and trying to make that a full-time living. And I tried to play competitive Mortal Kombat and try to win tournaments for money and stuff like that. And I had moderate success. I did make money doing that, but it was nowhere near enough to support myself at all, not even close. Because it takes a lot of effort to do that. And once I realized that I was never going to make a living playing video games, that's when I made this shift to the military.
Mhm. That's I mean, like you say, for take care of yourself. It's not enough money because, of course, you have a Ferrari and Lamborghini, and this is not cheap. Yeah, I was just joking, but I want to say something. Okay, one of the things I here is very clear is you are a fighter, right, man? Because you're always trying to find a way to find solutions for the things, and that's I believe is like very 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 nice point of view or something like it's saying something good about you, because many people it's always afraid to do things, but it you are not this kind of people, right? Because you were working like hard and try to find always solution, try to get this solve the problems because I believe that your country is not like New York or Calif or LA where you have a lot of things to do there in cybersecurity. I believe in your side or in your position, it wasn't very easy, right? And try to find ways to change this is like I believe is saying very very nice things about you. But after that, and now I'm very curious about the thing about you as in the Air Force, right? And can you explain a little bit how was the first training? That of course always taking care about what you can explain and what you cannot, right? But can you explain a little bit how is your first approach there? That okay, you enter there and you do the training like the regular with the arms or with the weapons and everything, or with the guns, or it's like only you go to the computers, or how is it?
Yeah, so I went in the Air Force, and I had pretty much no knowledge of the military. I'm actually the first one in my immediate family to serve in the military, and I don't have a whole lot of. I have distant relatives in the military, but I don't have anybody that's close to me that was in the military, and so that was challenging because I didn't really know what to expect. The only thing that I went in with the mentality was like, well, I had some classmates that went into the military. They weren't close to me, but I knew of them, and they went in that and they had um, successful careers. And I guess my mentality was like, well, if they can make it through, then I can make it through. And I think the sports really help me with my mentality and how to deal with tough times because sports, especially football, American football, is extremely difficult because you're always it's painful. You're always getting tackled. You always get thrown to the dirt, and you got to get back up every play. So I think that helped me going in the military for sure. Keep in mind, when I joined the military, I joined at the age of 24, and most people join at 18, 19, 20, 21. I joined kind of late. And so I'm like one of the oldest people. I wasn't the oldest person. There was a few handful of people that were older than me, but I was definitely above the average in age. Going back into the training, so I went into training and I didn't know anything, and I expected. So what I expected out of the training was I expected to get yelled at, and I expected it to be physically demanding. That's what I knew that going in. And I get in there, I'm getting yelled at, obviously, and I expected that, and I didn't realize because I was like I've been yelled at by my football coaches before, and I can handle this. And it was actually a shock to the system. I'm like, oh, this is actually a lot more yelling in my face than I thought it was going to be, but I persevered. But I think the hardest part of that training was kind of the mental game of it because you had to like make sure like your clothes are folded perfect and all this. Everything had to be perfect, and you can't have any strings on your uniform. And that was the hard part for me. The physical was easy because I went in with uh, a baseline strength. As a matter of fact, I actually um, lost strength after I got out of the military because I over prepared on the physical aspect going in. So that's kind of a roundabout answer or a way to answer your question. So to reframe it, the military, like everybody has to go through basic training, and everybody gets the same training. Doesn't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter if you are on the front lines or if you work on a computer. You have to do this. Everyone does the same basic training. It's the same for everybody. And that for the Air Force, anyways, it's a 2 month long, it's 8 weeks long of training. And then once you do that training, then you go into the training to do your job. So the first 8 months, you don't even learn how to do your job. First 8 weeks, you don't even learn how to do your job. You just learn how to be in the military. And that's all you do. That's your only focus is to becoming um, an airman, in this case, the Air Force. If it was the Army, you'd be a soldier or Marine. But yeah, after you get out of basic training, then you go learn your job. And after that, you really that's when you start to kind of understand like what your role is in the bigger military.
I believe like the legal in details because for me the belief is for me it's very interesting, because I always see the movies and about that, and I believe it's interesting. And you are not the first guest who working for army, but that's why, because one of the things I believe, like, from there is not important only the the knowledge is important, your way to, what to say, to perform in there, because I believe it's a very demand. It's not only about the physical stuff, it's the mental thing. And that's why I want to make you a question. You need to do your bed every day there, or it's not?
Yeah, you gotta make your bed every day, and it's gotta be they're called hospital corners. You gotta like fold the corners perfect. And honestly, that was one of my weaknesses. And the other reason why I survived was because we have to work as a team, and I just relied on my teammates to help me make my bed because I could do it, but it took me so long, and I was so inefficient at it. So I tried to play towards my strengths of helping the teammates out in other areas, and they help me out with that. So that's kind of like you learn how to work with as a team too, for sure. And I got good at cleaning other areas of the dorm and while they made the beds, and that's kind of how I got past that, I suppose. But yeah, that was a hard part for me because I was like I understand why they want it to be perfect because everything's got to be perfect in the military because it instills that discipline. But and I could do it. It just took me so long, and it was like, man, I am so slow at this. That was a hard challenge for me.
That's funny because you say, like, you was talking about, I like to play football, and football is a team play, but cybersecurity most of the time you need to be alone, and it's hard for you this, or it's like for you it's like normal.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've always been on a team. I've always, like I said, I played sports, and I had a few jobs where you have to work with people. And in the military, especially in basic training, you have to work on a team. But you're right, in cybersecurity, you have to spend a lot of time self studying. And I would say I didn't struggle with that at all, mostly because I was motivated to just do something better with my life. But I'm an introvert really, and I can thrive by myself for an extended period of time. So that's how I can manage the self study. And then furthermore is like I play a lot of video games by myself, just staring at the computer screen, so that helped a lot too, like, the ability to just sit down in a chair and just stare at a screen for 10 hours or however long you wanna do it, that I think I got that from just playing video games a lot, so, it wasn't challenging for the self-study for me.
Very interesting, very interesting. One of the things you told me, like I entered to their AirForce is because you want to try to find some better future for yourself and support yourself. But I was listening, the salaries there is not very high paid. Then how was this time for you? Because I believe it's like no much money, a lot of work from your side. Is was easy or was hard for mentally for you?
You talking about, like, the financial aspect of being in the military?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so that was extremely difficult, actually. That was really hard because I went from working in oil refineries, and I was making, I would say, above average pay for an early 20-year-old. I wasn't making, I wasn't in, like, the high income bracket or anything, but I was definitely middle class, but compared to most 22-year-olds, I was a little bit above the average for sure. So going into the military, I took a pay cut. I took a significant pay cut, and it hurt because I still had my car payment, I still had credit card debt, and I was honestly, my first 2 years in the military, I was living paycheck to paycheck. It was a struggle. It was a struggle until I got a couple promotions under my belt. Once I got a couple promotions under my belt, then I finally it took honestly, man, it took me, like, 3 years before I even had an extra dollar in my savings account. It took so long to just kinda get out of the hole because I went in I that was another reason why I went into the military because I was horrible with my finances, and I was in a hole as far as, like, debt goes, and I didn't have any extra money. Even though I was making more than the average person, I wasn't saving anything, and I was spending my money unwisely, and I was wasting it. Like I said, I play a lot of video games, so I would just dump so much money into video games because I thought that was, like, what I needed to build my channel, and that was the wrong idea. So, yeah, it took me a long time to really get to a point to where, like, "Oh my gosh, like, I actually have savings account," you know?
but that's something you said something very interesting because you know how many countries it's how we can say it's prohibited the possibility to do something about gambling on TV or whatever. But most of the video games today, like Call of Duty or Fortnite, most of them have gambling inside of the game. You can put your money and play with a roulette wheel, and most of the kids are playing there with the cards of the parents, and nobody's really taking care about that. And this is gambling, but that the people don't realize about that, right?
Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of that going on in video games. I think they're turning it back now because I think there's, like, some kind of legislation that's making companies turn it back, but, yeah, that was for sure, like, you would spend money and you would get a wheel spin at whatever you're trying to unlock, and you would just dump so much money, and I fell in that trap a few times at a couple different games, and I yeah, it's addicting, it's like they purposely to make these games to where, like, you can't own every skin in the game, and you can't pick which ones you want either. It's all luck based, and you gotta dump $5 in just for, like, a spin of the wheel, and then, like, "Oh, hopefully it lands on something I want," and then yeah. The
Yeah,
gambling in video games is definitely a problem for sure.
it's a trap. It's a trap, totally a trap, because the same that you're saying, you play video games, someone have a better gun than you, and that guy kills you, and you want the same gun, and you start to pay more for get the gun. It's like crazy, I play video games for free. I am older. I think I can take the man, but if someone is younger than me, like can be, brain broker or something like that, right? And the question here is like, okay, you was working there, but the thing is, many people go to the to stay in or start a military career not only for staying in the army, because many people know that you don't gonna make a lot of money, but can be a good future for your career, right? You was there for how many years finally?
I was in the military for 6 years.
For 6 years, right? Then I want to move after your career after and why you finally take the decision to stop to stay there. But can you explain about your daily life there when you was when I I know things it's not impossible to explain, but something you can explain. Like we play like to find something about, I don't know, about terrorists, or I play to do pen testing in the websites of the government or something like that.
Yeah. So it depends on which part of my career you're talking about because it kind of shifts, like, because the military has you like
You can
rotate.
explain everything.
Yeah. So when I first started, I was my first job in the military. Like after I got done with all my training, I went to my first duty station, which was in South Korea, which is a great opportunity. I love those 2 years of my life. But I'm imaging computers. So basically, like the Air Force has a standard desktop configuration. It has like it's a Windows 10 operating system with all of the Air Force applications, and has like all the what's allowed and what's not allowed built into the machine. And my job was to basically boot up the computer and install that operating system on that computer. And I did that all day, every day. And we're talking because like this was right when Windows 10 was starting to roll out, or there was an upgrade basically. And I'm imaging hundreds of computers a week, and a day. I would easily could image 20 computers in a day. And over the course of 3 months, I was imaging, me and my team. We did couple thousand computers, and that's what I did for the first 3 months. And then after that, I kind of graduated, and I got to the point where I could go out and do trouble tickets. So there's like a ticketing system, and the help desk people would get the call, and then they would get the problem. And if it couldn't be solved over the phone and it had to be in person, it would come to my team, and then I would get a handful of those tickets, and I would go on jobs and troubleshoot issues on site. And I did that for the remain for about 7 months or so, 8 months maybe. And also I configured phones for leadership. So um, the leadership, they would get like a government cell phone, and I would set those up for them, and it had to have special programs on it because it's government stuff. And I would set that up for, like all the commanders are on the base, and the higher up people on the base, which is really good experience because I'm like super low rank at this point, and I'm, basically setting all these phones up for these higher ranking people on the base, and that was a good experience to have. And then after a year of doing, going out on site and doing all this stuff, they put me on the help desk, and then I did the help desk for a year after that. And then I once I did the help desk for a year, it was time for me to change bases. So then I got put into Alaska, and I was at that job was a combination of like imaging computers, help desk, in-person support, managing uh the assets. Like I had to keep track of all of the assets, all the computers in my unit, and I had to configure the permissions for people because like there was, um, you know, the share drives, and every folder has to have certain permissions, and I had to manage all the permissions and make sure people could access the things that they needed and couldn't access the things that they didn't need it. And that was a big part of my job.
But you told me you was living in South Korea, right? 2 years. How was the experience there? Because I believe for a young guy there is like a it's something like was crazy for you, or because the party I know that I don't want to be like something bad, but South Koreans don't really speak English. But for you, I believe you don't speak South Korean. But how was your life there? Was funny or
It was great. It was probably two of the best years of my life for sure. And it was the first time I've ever been out of the country, out of the United States. It was the first time, and it was definitely a huge culture shock. But it wasn't a shock in a bad way. It was a shock in a good way because it was like an adventure. Like this is completely different than what I was been living up to this point in time. Like I'm in a whole new job working on computers, and I've never done that before. And I've never been out of the country before. So it was just a whole new adventure. And it was fun because it was so different and so from what I was used to. And like you said, yeah, I don't speak any South Korean. I didn't actually learn a whole lot of South Korean. I think I know how to like say hello maybe, and I probably would say it wrong. But the luckily a lot of the younger Koreans, they know how to speak English because I'm pretty sure they teach English to the younger generation of South Koreans. but the older generation of South Koreans, so if I ran across an older person, they spoke zero English, and that would be incredibly difficult to communicate with them. So I got really good at like explain what I needed or wanted from the store just by using hand signals and pointing at the picture of the restaurant. But it wasn't a complete culture shock because the base is an American military base, which they also share with the South Korean military as well. But there was like it was like split in half. So like our half was just all Americans. So um it was easy to get around because everything's in English and it's just basically like a mini American town within in South Korea. So and then you would only get the true experience of South Korea if you left the base, and that's when you got to experience the country. So yeah, overall it was a great time. I loved it.
Yeah, totally opposite to Alaska, right?
Yeah, yeah, Alaska. Well, Alaska's a little bit of a culture shock too, because Alaska is really far away from the rest of America, right? It's in between
It's in
Russia
the
and
middle of
Canada
nowhere
there.
in the north. But
And
um,
I mean, obviously, Alaska is very, very American, but there are some like weird quirks with Alaska that you don't get in mainstream the lower 48 states. So for sure, that was a little bit of a culture shock too, actually, because I went there, I was like, oh, I'm back in America. It's like, hold up, it's a little bit different here, you know. So, and that was a good time for sure. I like being in Alaska as well.
okay. And at that time, you had you was working or you was studying new certification during this time, or you study after your career.
Yeah, the certifications came. So I got into my first base, South Korea, and I spent the first, I would say, year just soaking it up and learning how to do my job well and kind of experience Korea a little bit and play a lot of video games because I went a long time without playing video games because you can't play video games at basic training and I didn't I spent so much time studying in my technical school that I didn't really have a lot of fun either there. I spent so much time studying for Security Plus, which is one of the reasons why I was able to excel at it. So after about a year, I was like, you know what? I need to start working towards something else. I needed to grow and evolve because I had a hunch at the time. I wasn't sure if I was gonna, stay in the military and for the rest of my career, if I was gonna get out. But I was like, well, in case I want to get out, I need to set myself up for success. So I started my school in the cybersecurity program to start working towards my degree because I was like, why not? And I think this is gonna help me in my career in the long run, and it did. And after I was in school for maybe about a quarter a year, I started realizing I was like, okay, school actually isn't that hard because I was only doing one class at a time. Well, at first I was doing like three, which was incredibly difficult, but then I toned it down to one because I have to because the military only lets you do so many classes at once. So I was doing one class at once, and I was like, "Well, I got some extra time. I need to start doing some other things to help me prepare for my potential separation." Like I said, at the time, I didn't really know if I was going to stay in the military my whole career, if I was going to get out. I had a hunch I was going to get out, so I was like, "You know what? Let's go get some certifications." Well, rewind for a sec. I decided that if I do get out, I want to be an ethical hacker. I want to be a pen tester, and I started looking up how to do that. And they're basically like the one thing I was like, oh, you gotta get the OSCP. I was like, okay, well, how do I get the OSCP? And it's like, oh, you gotta know networking, you gotta know Linux, you have to know operating systems, you have to know how to program. So I was like, okay, let me go learn Linux. So that's when I got the Linux Plus. And then I was like, well, let me go learn networking. So that's when I got the CCNA and the Network Plus. And then they were now I got to learn Python. So I started the 100 Days of Coding Challenge. And then as I'm doing all this stuff, I was like, you know what, I can get the Pen Test Plus because that's obviously a cert that would help me in my pen testing endeavors. And I'm really just getting all the foundational information to prepare me for the OSCP. And I'm working full time in the military, and I'm a part time college student, and I'm working on a certification. So really, it was just a big grind. Like there wasn't a whole lot of after that initial phase of like me like exploring Korea, it was mostly just like, hey, let me just grind this out and study every day.
That's very interesting because you have the opportunity and you got it. Not many people want to do it because same as you mentioned before, it's not easy, right? You need to do your extra time, and I don't know if the government pay for you the certifications, or you need to pay for yourself.
Some you do, some you don't. So there's a list of certifications that the Air Force would pay for. And if it's on the list, then you can get paid for it. And some of them aren't on the list. Like, for example, the OSCP, paid for that myself. I got my EJPT, paid for that myself. But like my CompTIA certs, though, those are covered by the military. So it really just depends on what certification it is. It's like, I would say half and half.
Mhm. That's good. At least you have the possibility to study for free, right? You have access to course and this some learning paths there for free, right?
Yeah, I would say the free training that the military gives you when it comes to like extracurriculars, like for example, let's take Linux Plus for example. Like the training that I had access to, in my opinion, wasn't that good. So I kind of went out and I purchased my own training. So for all my certs, I did purchase my own training. I just got the military to pay for the voucher because I wanted different training, if that makes sense, because I learned in a certain way that wasn't the training that I had that I could get for free wasn't the training that I thought would help me pass the certification. So I actually went out and purchased my own training.
Mhm. That's good because later I want to talk a little bit about you give some tips about certification or what is your opinion about that. But I'm very interested about why you did the decision to go to civil and end your career inside of the army, of the military car.
Yeah, that's a good question because it is a nice career being in the military. And I would say I got out of the military for two reasons. Because I loved it. I love putting on a uniform. A lot of people don't like wearing a uniform. I loved it because I had to think about what I had to wear every day. And just there's a lot of pride when it comes to wearing a uniform. And I loved it. And the job itself was good, but it started getting mundane, right? It started like I had to troubleshoot problems all the time. And when I was first joining, like it was a new problem every day. I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do I figure this out? And it's like new problem, solve, new problem. So I would spend all day trying to solve one problem. But then after 5 years of doing it, you get the same set of 100 problems and over. So it's like very rarely would I get a problem that I haven't seen before. And it just got really mundane. And I had the opportunity to re-enlist and go into ethical hacking, which is what I wanted to get into. I had a prime opportunity. Actually, the career field manager actually hit me up on LinkedIn after I got the OSCP, and it was like, "Hey, you think about re-enlisting and joining cyber warfare operations, which is um, that's where you're doing, like, the ethical hacking and then, like, real cyber defense rather than, like, IT work, if that makes sense, and I could have been a hacker for the NSA. Well, no, I wouldn't have been in the NSA, but they work with the NSA, and I could have been, this elite government hacker, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like the coolest job in the world, honestly, it really does." And but what made me not do it was for 2 reasons. One, the first one would be, uh, salary, 'cause you don't make that much money in the military, and I was like, "Well, if I have this skill set, why would I work why would I do the same work for less pay?" Because so that was one of the reasons why, because I can make more money in the civilian sector, in the private sector. So that was the first reason, and then the second reason was I wanna be able to live where I want, and I wanna be able to work from home, and I want the freedom to just be able to just live wherever I want to and work. And the military, you don't get that opportunity. You have to show up in person, and you don't even get to choose where you live. They just say, "Hey, you're gonna go live in Texas. You're gonna go live in South Korea, and you're gonna live in Alaska." You don't get a whole bunch. You get a little bit of a say, but not much. And I wanted that freedom to just be able to live where I wanted to, and I wanted full control over my destiny. And that's what I like about the private sector because I can quit my job right now and go work in another company, and I could even change careers. I can change careers on a whim. Like I can be like, you know what? I don't want to be a pen tester anymore. I want to be a cloud engineer. Or I don't want to be a pen tester anymore. I want to go be a programmer, whatever it is. I can do that literally right now. In the military, you don't get that option. You have to wait till your contract's up. It's like whatever it is, 4, 6 years, and then you can do it.
Mhm. And also I believe have another good thing is like you have the chance to hack more things, right? That's a good one. And okay, at that moment, what certification are you have it when you start to your new career in your cybersecurity? You have the OSCP and
Yeah, so getting out of the military, I had 12 certifications: OSCP, CISSP. Oh, I got my camera here to remind me. I got so many of them. I got the EJPT, OSWP. I have 6 CompTIA certifications, so that includes Security Plus, Linux Plus, CISA Plus, Pentest Plus, and Cloud Plus. And I actually, fun fact of the day, I actually just got the news today that I passed Security X, which is formerly the CAS Plus. So they turn CAS into Security X. I took the beta exam back in the summer a few months ago, and yeah, I got the pass for that. So I just got that one, but I didn't get that in the military. Obviously, it just happened. I got the CEH, a certified ethical hacker. I got the CCNA, and I think that's it. I think that's all of them.
Mhm. And what is your advice if someone start to get some certification from your point of view? You believe is like a game changer in your career, or can be important because today something I see many times in United States that not many people have certifications. It's not like here in Spain or yeah, in Spain it's crazy because many people have the OSCP. The people here is like very hard players inside, and also I know people in South America, but for South America is very expensive. But in United States, you can see many people working in cybersecurity and doesn't have any certification. That's why you take the decision to go there, and what can be your advice if someone to want to start in this world of the get some certifications.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely have way more certifications than the average person. And the reason why I would say is because I find it a certification is the easiest way to just prove competency to somebody. Like, for example, like the OSCP, it proves that I hacked into 4 out of 6 machines in 24 hours and I wrote a professional report. And the fact that I have that certification proves that I have that ability. Whereas if I didn't have that certification, then I have to find other ways to showcase those. And I think it's harder. It's not impossible. You can definitely showcase your skills and knowledge in other ways. But I feel like a certification is the easiest way to show show a skill set to an employer because the certification is only one line on a resume. Whereas, if I wanted to say, hey, I built a home lab, you're going to write a paragraph almost. So I think certifications are like kind of a space saver on a resume, to be honest with you. So that's one reason. Another reason was I enjoyed challenges. Um, like I said, I enjoyed the Security Plus exam, and I'm a pretty good test taker, obviously, but I just enjoy the challenge. I love having something to something to shoot for, right? Because like if I built a home lab and I had a bunch of vulnerable machines, and it's like there's really nothing an achievement, I guess. I'm very achievement based.
It's a
It's like
motivation.
certifications, like
We can
it's like,
we
hey,
can
I
say,
won a battle. Is
yeah.
how
I
I
mean,
feel
like,
every time.
sorry for interrupt you. I mean, like, it's something like a motivation. I find myself something like, okay, what is my next step? For me, for example, at that moment, my next step is I want to take the maybe the CASP, the CAS, the same you said, the CAS Plus, or the BARB suite, because and something I am the board certificate professional because I like to start to create to get more certifications about practical stuff than theoretical stuff because I believe theoretical is important, but also practical is very important. And same as you have theoretical path and also practical path. That if someone tell you about something about theoretical or maybe architecture, I believe you can create architecture of a company and where is where is the EIM, where is the cloud, where is the how you can connect the things, how you can create the infrastructure, and that's important for you because give you the opportunity to understand the company. And when you are going to perform a pen testing, you understand the company are you attacking, right?
Yeah, yeah. And another thing, yeah, that kind of just reminded me of like another thing with certifications is like there's so many topics in the field of IT and cybersecurity, and no certification covers everything, right? And maybe the CISSP covers like a little bit of everything, but it doesn't go deep on anything. So that's why I like certifications because, for example, like an OSCP and a OSWP, they're two certifications for a reason because one's wireless pen testing and one's, regular network pen testing. So there's so many areas, and you kind of need to know a little bit about everything because there's all these technologies kind of interconnect with each other. And when you get into engagement, and you can be a really good network pen tester, and then they're like, "Hey, we got this Azure environment," and I'm like, "Oh man, I gotta learn Azure." And then the next client will have, AWS. So it's like there's so many different technologies to kind of work together, and there's no certification that covers everything, and that's why it makes sense to get multiple certifications because you got to build up different skill sets.
At that moment, for me, one of the most important values or maybe mm, knowledge fields you can have it in cybersecurity, and that's why I want to discuss with you because for me, it's important your point of view is one, it's weapon testing, very important because most of the companies today is moving to application, web application, APIs, because most of the companies have APIs for everything. Let's move to the next one is the mobile pen testing, because many companies and most of the banks and insurance, most of the companies have application. And the last one is cloud security, because everything today is on the cloud or have a part of the company of the cloud. That's why, from my point of view, certifications like OSCP or the old SCP doesn't have many sense because doesn't cover these fields very deeply, right? But uh, what is your opinion about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, OSCP specifically, like it's missing some key details. I think OSCP teaches you how to exploit vulnerable machines when there's exploit code available, or if it's like outdated software, or like it kind of gets you. It teaches you how to enumerate well and how to think outside the box, and does really good at that. But it doesn't teach you anything about web app. Well, maybe a little bit about web app, but it doesn't not enough about web app pen testing. It doesn't teach you anything about the cloud. Well, the old course did, and I think the new course does talk about the cloud a little bit, but it's not part of the exam. And but yeah, I mean, there is even though the OCP is one of the harder certifications that you can actually go for and achieve, it's still missing some key elements in there. And I think you can pick any certification in any certification is missing key elements because the field is so vast that you can't pack everything into one certification or one exam, one course.
That's why I make you the question, because we are we are in November. We are in the almost the end of the year, and someone maybe is listening this podcast and wants to start to, okay, at the beginning of 2025 I want to start my career as a cybersecurity professional, because I hear Kaiser and I'm very motivated today and I want to follow the same path he did. But it's important to follow the same path you did because it's another time. But at that time, what is your advice if someone wants to start? What do you believe is the good part? It's like what can be the first certification that person, in your point of view, can get it?
I like the Security Plus as a first certification. And when it comes to advice, I would say don't think about it too much and just get started. So there's infinite paths here. There's 400 certifications, and everybody in the field has gotten their foot in the door in a different way. And if you ask 100 cybersecurity professionals on how they broke in a field, you're going to get 100 different answers. So don't get hung up on like following a certain path. You need to learn how to make your own path. And it's okay to kind of structure your path based on someone else's path, but don't be afraid to veer off of that path and make your own path because the I've always been the type of person be like, okay, I'm gonna get this certification by this time, this certification by this time, and I would map out um a 1 year plan, a 5 year plan, a 10 year plan. I'll tell you what, my first 5 year plan, it did not go the way I thought it was gonna go because sometimes certifications take longer to obtain than you think they're going to. And then some certifications, you learn about later on, and you're like, "Oh, wow, this one looks like a pretty good one to pick up." So, I would say just get started, and it's okay to veer off the path, and it's okay. You're gonna have to pivot a lot because, I'm constantly pivoting my career in the way I approach like what certifications I'm getting, what training I'm doing.
And also you feel, maybe you feel more comfortable, right? Maybe you start to study, in some cases we can say, you study for the AWPT, for the INE, and you start to with the OWL, and you start to discover the web pen testing, and for you it's funny, and do you want to stay there and be professional in that area, right? Or maybe do you find like something we didn't mention is can be reversing, right? Reversing seems like old school, but today the people can still finding vulnerabilities in reversing in Linux or Windows or whatever, right? And still being like, it's not easy. That's why many people doesn't take that path, but it can be interesting, right? Because I believe the same you mentioned before, and I am really use like everyone have a different skills, and these skills will help you to get your favorite path, right? Because if you need to study or you do something, it's not interesting for you, can be very frustrated, right? At least for many people. And we are running in the last minutes of the interview, or we can say like a fairly conversation. And I don't want to let the conversation without cover the elephant in the room. It's like artificial intelligence. Today, everyone is using AI or hacking AI or trying to do something with artificial intelligence. About what is your point of view about that, and how do you approach this new technology? You are studying something about hacking about this field, or do you pass, or what do you believe is going to be the future? I only want your opinion.
Yeah, AI, it's definitely I mean, it's been around for a while now, but the advent of large language models, specifically ChatGPT, changed the whole game because it brought the ability for like the average person, like literally anybody in the world can use artificial intelligence now, where before it was only exclusive to people who had a lot of money in large companies. So that was a huge shift in the world, not just our industry, but the entire world, because there's other industries that are using AI effectively that don't know anything about tech, and they're using AI to, make it, I don't know, a sales, they're improving their sales process or whatever profession they're in, and I'm sure there's some other professions they're using as well. So my opinion on AI is, I really do love it because it takes a lot of the mundane work out of the work, because I can have a list of things that I want to sort, and I could just give it to ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, sort this in alphabetical order or whatever order I want to sort it in." Or I could, um, while I'm learning, let's say like I'm studying for the OSCP or something, and I get a bunch of output from a machine that I'm practicing on, I can copy all of that information and put it in a ChatGPT. Now you can't use ChatGPT on the OCP exam, but you can use it for your training, and you can use it to learn, because um, you can just ask it whatever question you want, and it's great because honestly, I use ChatGPT more than Google to ask questions now, because it it takes into my specific unique scenario in mind. Whereas if you go to Stack Overflow, it doesn't take any unique uh, scenario in mind. So it's definitely really cool, and really, I'm using AI every day. Like literally every day, I'm using it for everything, and not just learning in cybersecurity career. I mean, like, just to get a recipe for something, like, I'm like, "Hey, I need a recipe for this," or "How do I cook, what are some cool ways I can cook salmon?" And I'm using it for everything. I think it definitely changed the world. It augments my life so much, and a lot of people, some people are afraid that AI is gonna kill your job, and that's true. The AI is going to kill jobs, but I think it opens up, a bunch of other jobs, and I believe in that phrase. AI isn't going to replace you, but the person who uses AI will replace you. And so that's the mentality that I have. And if you're not using AI, then I think you're falling behind, because it's just a tool in your arsenal. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter what field you're in. Everybody can benefit from AI. And while there will be jobs that get killed by AI, I think it opens up way more opportunities than it shuts down.
Mhm. And also, I want to add some words here, because the same you mentioned, like many people is afraid of AI, but I believe if you learn how to use it and you and take the right profit of it, it can be a game changer in your life. In my case, I'm gonna give you my example. I like to use one of my favorite things inside of cybersecurity is not only exploding, it's investigation. One of the things I really like is like try to find new things, new ways, or create very different ways. Right. One of the things I can say I am not a professional in in artificial intelligence because I am not an expert, right? But I can say I'm an advanced user. And one of the things I did is like I create my own LLMs. I have my own system for where I can send my applications to find some cybersecurity issues. I can try to find how this malware is working, and these kind of things. But I believe that's will be the game changer because obviously it's not like the electric car. The government or most of the people want to put you in the front of the door. It's like artificial intelligence is something like most of the companies are taking, and why it's money saving, and most of the companies want to save money. That's the truth, right? That's why, and if you learn how to use it in advanced way better than other competitors in the side of the market, will be a game changer because you are more how I can say more effective in your work. Like something it's need 2 hours, you can do in half an hour. That's will be the game changer. For example, I can give you one example. If you go to some website and you need to find access and you go step by step, but if you have your own AI and you take the code, you put there and like, hey, find the vulnerabilities and where is the vulnerabilities and explain me how to explode. You got it. Easy. I know it's not working 100% of the time, but we are being realistic. We know for one pen testing, you have a timeline, right? It's not you have you're online, but if you have if in 1 week you have for pen testing, you are able to take 30 or 40 vulnerabilities, and another company only take 20. Who wins?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I like what you said about how it saves time. That is, you could take something that would normally take you 4 hours, you cut it down to an hour. It saves so much time and it lets you just work on other things and or give you more free time, whatever you prefer. But yeah, I love AI and it's definitely helped me a lot. And I've used it in all areas of my life and I feel like it helps me be way more efficient than I was before.
Mhm. But the dangerous thing? Also, the bad actors or the threat actors are using AI today for create new malware and new ADR versions and these kind of things. But this can be a part of the another conversation because it was a pleasure to have that time with you. And also, guys, you have I believe or I remember. Or maybe I wrote, but the people was working in the USA Army have the possibility to travel cheaper than the people doesn't or the civilians. Or that's true. Do you have some benefits for flying?
Yeah, there are. You can use some benefits to travel. I never took advantage of them because I found out about them way too late. Because it's like kind of a secret a little bit. They don't really tell like military members like how to use the system, and even then, there's a lot of hoops you got to jump to, and it's kind of difficult to use. And you can't when you're using that system. It's like you don't get to choose like what day and what time you fly out to go somewhere. It's just like, hey, if we got an extra room on this flight, you can jump in, but we might not have any room. So it's really hard to plan like a full vacation. And it's just like a lot of people they'll you basically are on like a waiting list and it's like, okay, you might be able to go and or you might not be able to go. And it's hard to plan a vacation because you don't get the exact day and time that you want to go somewhere, basically. So there's that perk too. But I never personally took advantage of it. The only traveling that I did was like on formal, like government approved work. Like, hey, you got to go. You're stationed in South Korea. Okay, get on a plane and go. And that
Okay, okay. But if someday you come to Madrid, just let me know because I will invite you to some tapas. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to share that time with you. And I hope to see you again soon, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Bye bye.